Speaker, friends, colleagues, guests, if there are any left upstairs in the gallery, and viewers at home. Thank you for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to address this House and the residents of the constituents of Calgary-Currie. Mr. Speaker, I am a proud mom to two phenomenal kids. When I was their age, I would never have imagined I would end up here. Though I have always called Calgary home, I was always drawn to the Rockies rather than to the capital. Like a lot of folks in this province, my first job was at the mall, South Centre Mall to be specific, over in Calgary-Acadia when I was 14, back when the minimum wage for youth was the same as adults. I washed dishes in high school and served coffee while I juggled a full course load in university. Like the member opposite, tree planting every summer covered tuition for the following year. I didn't think mine was the standard work history for someone aspiring to sit in these chambers, but after hearing so many Maiden speeches over the last few days, maybe it is. And we have to remind ourselves of what that hustle feels like, because Albertans live it every day. I hope Albertans see the diversity of the members with whom I have the honor to stand with. Our career paths, our cultures and backgrounds, our faiths and interests have all brought us to this place, and they're worth celebrating and sharing in the hopes that it might inspire others to serve. Mr. Speaker, as the daughter of a social studies teacher, it is incumbent on me to briefly share the history of the settler and Indigenous landscape of Calgary-Currie. In the interwar era, Calgary's growth to the southwest of the downtown core picked up significantly. Currie Barracks was constructed in 1933, just beyond the outskirts of the city as part of a federal depression relief program. And for decades, Currie Barracks was a hub of activity and a permanent fixture of Canada's military in Alberta. This wouldn't have happened had the government chosen austerity measures rather than stimulus spending. The surrounding PMQs that popped up after the war brought families nearby, with schools, businesses, and civil society following suit. In '97, Currie Barracks was decommissioned, and Canada Lands has now been tasked with reinventing the space as the demand for housing and inner-city community grows. But certainly, the history of the area is not just that of the military or the municipality or settlers. Calgary is built on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Nation. To the north and east lies the confluence of the Bow and Elbow Rivers, Mohkinstsis, a major hub and gathering place for First Nations people in southern Alberta for the past 10,000 years. And to the south and west of Calgary-Currie is Tsuut'ina Nation and Stoney Nakoda Nation, whose people have traveled the hills and valleys long before there were roads, houses, and shops. Recognizing the pre-contact history, colonial genocide, and sustained Indigenous presence in my riding is one small personal act of truth and reconciliation. As a member of His Highness's loyal opposition, it is my duty to uphold the commitments of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 93 calls to action, to be an ally that works on addressing the unconscionable numbers of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, to condemn violence and racism, and end systemic oppression of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. Today, Calgary-Currie is a wonderful example of everything that makes Calgary a really terrific city. It's a mix of urban and suburban living whose communities are a testament to planning and public funding of a bygone era. Communities like Ross Carrick and Killarney developed holistically with schools, places of worship, green spaces, and storefronts. Spruce Cliff and Glenbrook have mixed density, affordable housing, and residential long-term care. Parks, community centers, and my personal favorite, the strip mall, dot the ridings, that are hubs for gatherings, local business, and social enterprise. If you travel from the southwest corner toward downtown, you'll pass Optimist Athletic Park and the site of loaded hockey bags bigger than the kids hauling them. Swing past Sarcee Meadows Cooperative Housing, one of the largest in Canada, right next door to Rutland Park, where the green field is packed with kids playing soccer and men and women practicing cricket every weekend. Stop at the outdoor rink at Richmond Nob Hill, lovingly tended to by community volunteers and adored by kids and adults alike. Closer to downtown, you can't miss the outrageously in-demand pickleball bookings in Bankview, nor the swing of rackets on the tennis courts in Sinalta. Calgary-Currie communities are walkable, eclectic, and steeped in history. But it's the 45,000 plus people who live there that make it special, and I am deeply honored to serve them. People like the woman I met door knocking who learned her rent was going up by $500. She'd moved to Canada years ago and recounted how she had to work 3 minimum wage jobs to support her kids. Those little ones would join her in the evenings while she cleaned houses because it was often the only time she would have with them. Is hers a story of resilience and commitment? Undoubtedly. But imagine if that spirit could have been applied in a university classroom or at just one secure, reliable, good-paying job. I recall the dad we met who was concerned about how he would keep his home after quitting his job to care for a son with complex needs. The boy had a birthday coming up and Dad hoped he could afford a little something special. Another story of grit and determination? Indeed. But if we aren't here to ease the burden of families like theirs, why are we here at all? I know that's why I'm here. What brought me to politics was a lifelong dedication to poverty reduction through policy change. I have always believed that in a city as wealthy as Calgary, in a province as fortunate as Alberta, that lives did not have to be lived in chronic scarcity. That poverty still exists is a choice, and we can choose better. I run and serve with other New Democrats because we share this core value. I would note that in our province, the wealth of a few has only translated to the prosperity of many because of progressive, social democratic policies. In the past, it was the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, succeeded by the NDP, that advocated for public health care, public education, labor rights, public pensions, workers' compensation, childcare, and children's benefits. And today, we all fight to uphold those institutions with an eye toward ensuring that every Albertan of every age, race, gender, and sexuality can, 1, exist as they are freely in our province, and 2, to thrive. Despite our best efforts, there are still far too many who don't get to share in our prosperity. I want to take a moment to recognize the people across this province who go out every day to alleviate the pain and suffering of their fellow Albertans, whether it's their paid job or not. I'm especially talking about those who are on the front lines, saving people who would otherwise die of a toxic drug poisoning. This year alone, Mr. Speaker, over 1,100 Albertans, many children and young adults, have lost their lives to a toxic drug supply. And I dread to think how much higher that number would be if it weren't for the people who know how to use Narcan to reverse a drug poisoning or opioid overdose. To the people who use drugs, to the volunteer outreach teams, the frontline workers and first responders, you are all lifesavers. I know this work doesn't come without a tremendous personal toll, and it is my promise to you that I will do all I can to help you help others. Speaking of the helpers, to my husband Steve and our daughters, I bring you with me to work every day. Thank you for keeping me grounded. See if we can get through it here, folks. Lastly, I hoped to have my mom's name read out in the chambers today. Her name is Barbara Downey, and she came out from Montreal to work at the gift shop in Lake Louise in 1967 and never looked back. She was fiercely independent, stubborn as a mule, and loved her Rocky Mountains. They were hers. So I don't know if anybody else likes the mountains, but she's got them. She was a special education teacher with the Calgary Board of Education for 3 decades. And she has late-stage Alzheimer's. Travel from Calgary with my dear stepdad, Brian, isn't really an option, but saying her name aloud is a little like having her here. I can't possibly thank all the volunteers, supporters, donors, and friends who have contributed to my being here. I am infinitely grateful to your support and for not giving up on this beautiful province we call home. Thank you.